All right, welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. Y'all all know that I love a car that's capable of performing well in multiple disciplines, autocross, drag strip, road course, and also can be driven on the street very comfortably. Uh, Today's guest has certainly proved that his 72 Nova is capable of doing all that. He's participated in UMI events, Sick Week, Autocross Week, LS Fest Grand Champion, and I'm sure there's plenty more that we'll hear about. Some of y'all may recognize the car or the name. Uh, because he set a record at Grand Champion LS Fest East this year by being the first guy to run in the nines in autocross trim, which is pretty dang awesome. I can't wait to hear the story and the build up to all to that achievement. So, welcome to the show, Nick Barnett.
Hey, thanks everyone. Happy New Year.
Mm.
Pleasure to do the show. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the intro.
Yep. So, let's just kind of the basics, who you are, where you're from. And I know you've been running the Nova for a while, so maybe give us a little background on that and how long ago you got the car and how long you've been autocrossing.
Nick Barnett, originally out of Western Pennsylvania, famous small town called Punxsutawney. Nowhere is home. Currently, we're out of Iowa, retired military this year. So I spent time in Kentucky and Texas and Virginia and Maryland and Michigan and just a little bit of everywhere and a few places overseas. Um, Kind of got a late start to racing. I was a recruiter in Michigan back in 2008 or 2009. I had a V6 Tiburon GT, 2003. Actually, had won that car. So funny
Oh,
story. I had entered a competition they had. Hyundai was putting on a competition back in 2003 called the "You Dream It, You Build It." And he went on to Sport Compact Car Magazine was where I found the link, back when that magazine publication was still around. And it said, hey, put a paint scheme and wheels and tires on this car and enter your rendering and, we'll pick a winner. Board on staff duty,
hmm,
which non-military guys, you have to stay up all night and just watch the phone, watch the computer, watch security cameras. So I was like, well, nothing else to do. So I did a little rendering and put some wheels and tires on it and submitted my, example and then
hmm,
completely forgot about it because I'm a young kid in a foreign country having fun.
right.
Get home over Christmas and we get some certified mail saying you want a car. And of course, we thought initially it was scam. We're a
Scam, of
small
course.
town kid. Yeah, I mean, who gets a letter in the mail saying you want a car? It
Yeah,
sounded like the
right.
publisher clearinghouse scam. Where they're trying to get you to send in some money to, then take it from you.
Right.
But we validated it, and sure as nothing, it was real. So
Hmm,
my dad actually accepted delivery. I was deployed during the time to Operation Enduring Freedom, and then what became Iraqi Freedom.
hmm,
And got back, enjoyed the car for a few years, drag raced it down in Texas. So my first discipline in, kind of car, besides just joyriding in the mountains of Pennsylvania, was drag racing.
hmm,
Did that for a year. We moved to, where did we move to next? Moved to Virginia next. No track nearby, so we didn't really do much. Then we moved to Michigan, so back to where we were with the Michigan. Daughter was born, recruiter in a little office, and one of the other recruiters had gotten into SCCA road racing. They had picked up a Datsun 260Z,
yeah.
him and a buddy,
Hmm,
and they were having issues with the car. They'd gone out to, I think, either Mid Ohio or um, I can't remember what's Grattan is up in Michigan. I think it is Grattan Speedway or something like that. But they had gone out to one of the tracks and the car shut off in the first corner.
hmm,
And they were devastated because all this money and resources they had pumped into this car just to shut off on the first corner. Of
hmm,
course, car refires, they make it to the next corner, shuts off again. And it went over and over and they pulled it off the track, got black flagged.
hmm,
So they troubleshot it, could not find the problem. So they're like, hey, you're a mechanic. I've been
hmm,
wrenching on cars since I was knee high to a grasshopper. And can you come out to this autocross event and help us diagnose the car? I'd never heard of autocross. I'd never seen autocross before that.
hmm.
So they take us up to the cabin. The primary owner jumps in the car after having not, I don't know. I kind of joke about it. It's like we hadn't done anything to the car yet. I don't know why he thought with nothing done to the car it was going to work going into the
Right.
first corner. Sure enough, he goes in the first corner, car shuts off.
Yeah.
The pull in the pits. Secondary owner, I'm like, well, are you going to drive the car now? He says, well, no, I want to, I want to see if you can figure out the problem.
Hmm.
You jump in the car and figure it out. Because you'd rev it in the parking lot, you'd take off as hard as possible, it wouldn't have
Hmm.
any issues.
Yeah.
So I'm in the car, strapped in, foreign car, just trying to, I having no idea what autocross is, trying to learn
Hmm.
cones and all this other stuff. First corner, car shuts off. Well, I noticed in the corner of my eye that the roll cage stayed mostly rigid, but the body and the roll cage were flexing at different,
Yeah.
frequencies. The main power block, which was a cutting board that they had used, just for distribution,
Yeah.
was arcing off the roll cage, shutting
Uh,
the car off.
oh gosh, that's funny.
Got back to the pits, loosened up the worm gear,
Hmm.
tilted the ironing or the cutting board, and
Hmm.
problem solved.
That's hilarious.
So that kind of got me hooked, though. I had fun doing that, and of course, I had that Tiburon. So
Hmm.
I went to my first autocross with the gosh, I can't even think of the name of the region up there, Detroit region, and there was another region, and of course, Aaron Oberl was going to kill me because I think that's his home region. A good friend of mine, cancer survivor.
Yeah.
God bless you, Aaron.
Hmm.
I know you just said that cancer's kind of coming back. Kick its ass, man. But
Amen.
amen. So, but we went out there, run an event with them. Ended up buying wheels and tires because I was hooked more. And of course, anytime you start something, you have to improve.
Oh yeah.
Um, ran while we were up in Michigan. I think I ran most of a season. So this is back in 2008. Well, then orders off to Maryland we go. Maryland, I had no idea where any of the autocross vendors were or, venues were. Um, None of them that I knew of outside of Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And I didn't have time. I was an instructor. I was in the schoolhouse. I was working, 4 in the morning, getting home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. Just
Whew.
really didn't really have time for that with a newborn baby and
Hmm.
the wife at home. So we drag raced a little bit, and that's where I said I was kind of tired of front wheel drive, and we bought the Nova. Well, the Nova was just an old school 350, 350,
Hmm.
primer gray, old school throwback car. I drag raced it for a few years and played around with it. And I want to say now, fast forward 2 moves, we're in Tennessee. A military police officer buddy of mine said, "Hey, I need help. You're a mechanic." Again, back to Datsun. So apparently, I need to buy a Datsun one day. They weren't so.
You're a
If they
Dotson
didn't
mechanic, I
rust,
guess, huh?
if they didn't rust sitting still, looking at them in a temperature controlled environment, maybe I'd own one.
Right.
But he said, "Hey, I'm putting a LS engine in this Datsun 260Z. Would you come over and help?" And that was when I was introduced to LSs. I had never really paid attention to them. At that time, I was in competitive shooting. I was entered in the U.S. Army Small Arms Championship that year and a few other different things. So I really wasn't. You can only have one prohibitively expensive hobby at a time,
Of course.
typically when your finances restricted. And at that time, it was
Right.
shooting. So you didn't want to enter, throw auto mechanic or autos back into it.
Hmm.
Well, I did that LS swap with them, and I said, "Well, these are kind of a interesting combo, and I mean, they make great power. They're
Hmm.
pretty easy to work with. I don't mind a little bit of wiring." And did some internet researching, come across Matt Happel. I'm sure most of the people in your community have heard of Matt.
Oh yeah.
Um, I decided to put together the old school, 1.0 sloppy mechanic special GT45 on a 5.3. And the car was just, I mean, night and day difference in power.
Hmm.
And we built it just to get ice creams and do burnouts. There wasn't much autocross down in Tennessee. I know good buddies down there in Operational Speed Supply before he had moved. They had done a lot of work to build up the autocross there in Clarksville area. Unfortunately, now it looks like that's going away unless they can find a different venue
Hmm.
because Clarksville Speedway was sold recently. I know they had done one on Fort Campbell. I know there was a lot of issues with being on the airfield and stuff, but hopefully they can make out some deals and keep that momentum going because they really did build that area up real well.
Yeah. I think I
But
ran across probably around that same time frame as when I found the sloppy mechanics page,
yep,
and he was fooling with the mega squirt early
yep,
on, and
yep.
I mean,
I picked up HP tuners originally, though
mm,
I didn't do the Mega Squirt. I already had the ECU from the car, so I picked up HP tuners and
mm,
kind of taught myself based off of what he provided for free.
mm,
Taught myself how to tune that car, and then other people started having me tune their cars, and I think I've got over 20 something cars now that I've tuned between
Oh,
HP
nice.
tuners and Holly systems. I don't play with
Mm.
HP tuners anymore unless it's mine. It's too much complication. I just don't enjoy it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't charge people enough to play with it because I feel wrong charging them. If I'm charging you $300 a tune, I feel like I'm charging you too much, even though I know that's cheap.
Right.
And I can't, do what I need to do in a time frame that makes sense to,
Mm.
actually ask for people for money. So I
Right.
kind of gave up on the HP tuners game.
Yeah, he
Plus,
he kind of he's the one that kind of influenced me because I mean I got a Gen 3 Hemi in the car now, but prior to
mhm,
that I had a stroker small block and I custom made all the EFI setup for it and used the Mega
yep,
Square because I guess the way he explained it, he simplified it a lot, and I'm like,
yep.
I can do that, and
He breaks
so
it down in really simple terms. The one thing I do love about the LS is their garbage motors.
mm,
I can blow up three of them and go down to the scrap yard and pull three of them for
mm,
pennies.
yeah,
They're getting easier to find than small blocks. My brother hurt a small block in a Monte Carlo he had, and he was having me look for them and buy. It's getting hard to find small blocks.
yeah,
You
I believe
you
it.
know I could throw a rock and hit 10 LSs, but even finding small blocks and coyotes are starting to pop up in our area. Gen ones mainly.
Mm,
Um, I think they sound horrible cold, but then once you get them wound out, they sound really awesome.
they do.
And they make great power, but man, they're the widest motor in the world, kind of like the Hemi. You really have to have a heck of an engine bay to clear
Mm,
everything you need to clear for those motors. So the Hemi, not so much, but it is at least a little bit bigger than an LS
yeah,
platform. So
I think the Coyote's even bigger than the Hemi.
it is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, the
so
overhead cams really widen it up. So you got to have
mm,
some real wide engine bay to make sure you can clear everything there. So
right, yeah. So were you? I assume at some point you started autocross on this thing with the turbo in it,
yes. So I
right?
did one autocross, and then you'll laugh, but I did one autocross in Tennessee on Cooper Cobra, 15-inch 235 Cooper Cobras. I looked like, throwback 70s, cop chase movies, cars, stock springs, stock sway bar, no rear sway
Mm,
bar, just rolled over on the front end like it's going to come off the car and had a hoot, wasn't
mm,
fast, had an absolute blast,
yeah,
Then we moved to here in Iowa now, and that momentum of racing down in Tennessee, I searched for, a division up here to go racing with, and sure enough, there was one in my backyard. So I went and did one or two races with them on the Cooper Cobras, and then broke out the old. I think it was the Summoner Jegs. I bought the little 17-inch. They were like a spoke style rim, 8-inch wide, 245 tire, and run a season like that. Actually, my first cam event was run on those 245 Indy 500 tires.
yeah.
They did great in the wet. I know a lot of people give them tires heck. They're a cheap tire and they don't really grip that well. But in the rain, they actually do all right. So um, I haven't really. I'd love to eventually go and run a back to back and try them again now that the car is more capable and see if I soften the car up. Could
Mm,
I run faster in the wet with those versus say a 71 RS or the new RZ or something like that?
right.
So,
Yeah.
but we started running it up here, and so that was 2018. So that was kind of the first full season of autocross with the Nova, and then it's just been, you know, pulled in the shop. What can I do next? The first big change we made was the wheels and tires, and it had a drag brake package on it back then, so it did okay for autocross. But I was also getting into road racing. A lot of my friends were kind of influenced me to go and go out to the road courses and run those. We put hybrid coilovers on the front and went that next year, so about 2019, to Raceway just outside of Omaha called Raceway Park of the Midlands. I think it changed names recently. God bless me, I don't remember what the new change is, but um, nice flat. You could go off any corner at full speed and you wouldn't hit anything torn,
That's good.
which made it an amateur driver, for that kind of speed like me, very comfortable.
Right.
And which was probably the wrong thing. So I'm doing 140, 150 mile an hour on the front stretch on
Right.
drag brakes and basically lighting them on fire in the first corner. Um, So the next year we upgraded the brake package. Didn't understand brake pad characteristics and all that stuff. And actually, I was mistaken. I thought I had BP20s in it because I believe that's what that kit said it had. I
Yeah.
bought it used though, and the owner had put BB10s in it. So
Oh,
then I had a
geez.
14-inch brake package.
Mm,
Went back to RPM the next year thinking, oh,
mm,
I got brakes now. I can give this thing all the beans. And you
mm.
could shovel the brake pad out like it was gravel inside of my wheels. I
Ugh,
would get a warm up, a hot lap, and a cool down, and I had to come off
that
track.
was it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't been on the road course too much in the
Mm.
last 2 years. I have 8 crushed discs on my back,
Oh,
and I
shit.
had an on-track incident there where my neck locked up when I was looking left trying to go right.
Yeah.
So thankfully, we were able to get her off track safely, and but I haven't been back since. We're still looking at surgery options and things
Yeah.
like that. But I won't risk in a
No.
something that's that kind of speed. And even though we only had 2 cars on track, that other car can catch it kind of quickly
Mm.
based off radios and transponders and all that stuff. So I didn't want to injure myself or hurt
No.
anybody else. So
Right. What's the suspension setup on it now?
right now it's still hybrid coilover, so it's a stock front subframe,
Mm.
slightly modified. We're running the Ride Tech True Turn kit
Okay.
with 2-inch drop spindles and their drag link and outer tie rods and all that stuff.
Mm.
We just put a sweet um, 8-to-1 box in it this last year.
Oh, nice.
That really helped me out a lot. I mean, I
Mm.
was struggling with especially slaloms and quick transitions. I just couldn't saw the wheel fast enough. I had
Mm.
been running a Grand Cherokee 12 7-to-1 box,
Mm.
junkyard box, and then finally upgraded. And anybody that's on the fence, it is a fast box. It's like the hardest thing I had to relearn was parking lots. And I don't mean autocross parking lots. I mean driving into work and you're turning into a parking lot and you breathe on the wheel and it's going,
Right.
and just wasn't used to that ferocity and turning,
Mm.
and especially a parking lot going down the road, you kind of feel it with the weight of the wheel and all that stuff. But
Right.
running Viking triples on the front, we upgraded those thanks to the good guys at Operational Speed Supply. This last year, we blew one of the old Warrior, whatever they are, two dual adjuster
Mm.
shocks, probably because of they were, I don't know if they were CPP. So anybody,
Mm.
if you're cheap like I was, CPP will list the Viking kit under their brand. Hey, buy this, for $550 or whatever they were. So that's where I bought the original kit. Well, the springs aren't Viking springs. I don't know who sells the springs. No offense to whoever did, but the springs I had, the car would sit sideways.
Oh,
And
jeez.
after a season, I pulled the springs out and they were different heights static, you
Dang.
know. So we put true Vikings in it. I've gone all over the place with spring rates. I've had 750s in it on the front, but unfortunately they're 8-inch. And back then it was a little too low for still driving it on the streets and stuff.
Mm.
You'd wince over every bump in the road, hoping you weren't leaving an oil trail behind you. I think right now we're sitting on 650 spring rate springs in the front.
Mm.
Rears are a Global West leaf spring. Unfortunately, I don't think they
These
sell
springs.
those anymore. Yeah,
Okay.
still leaf springs.
Mm.
I run a modified Pro Touring F body spherical bearing on the front eye
Mm.
with the Camaro spring pockets are taller, so we're running the Camaro spring pockets for better, leaf spring angle to help plant the tire better.
Mm.
And then I cut some Delrin bushings for the rear to, give it, that firmness and still be a nice slippery surface. So we're just running some Delrin bushings in the rear.
Yep.
Um, I've gone back and forth with having a rear sway bar on it. I think they're ST bars that I bought way back in the day. I haven't up. I'm looking at probably doing like a UMI custom bar this year, a Ride Tech custom spline bar this year
Mm.
on the front. And last year, I ran one autocross event with the bar connected, ran 2 runs, and then disconnected the bar. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big enough venue, and I kind of was having a bad day for my back
Yeah.
and everything to really get a feel if it was a huge difference. I know I can drive out of a corner way better without the bar, but I was also having an issue with almost too much weight transfer. I mean, there's some pictures out there where I'm pulling a Dan Ballard carrying, 12 inches of air underneath the front tire. And that's not, it looks amazing, but it's not
That
necessarily, not necessarily the fastest way around the course.
those are
When
always
you're,
awesome pictures.
they are. I had my neighbor's son got in the car with me, and he freaked out the first time it did it. He's like, "What the heck was that?" And I was like, "Yeah, we just basically jumped the cone with the left front is what that was."
Yeah, I'm running. I still run leaf springs too, and I have sliders in the back, and
I have bought a set
incredible
of sliders.
difference.
Is it? I bought a set from a friend, and I went to put them on the car. And at the time, I was running out of time for the season. It required a lot of changes, and I was working to get my NHRA licensing for that first year of
Mm,
sixth summer. So I eventually just said, well, I know the car now with just the regular shackles in the rear, and didn't do the sliders. They're still sitting up in the rafters waiting for a rainy day for me to put them on.
yeah.
So,
So these cars, they have what they call a 3/4 offset leaf spring. So basically,
mhm,
it'll put the leaf spring in line with the inner wheelhouse because I'm not
mhm,
mini tubbed or anything, right? So
mhm.
now instead of the tire hitting the leaf spring, it's in line with the wheelhouse. So you'd hit both. That'd be your
Yep.
maximum backspace, right? So it's cool, but and it's fine for drag cars. But the problem is your shackle is shaped like a Z,
Mhm.
so now that's got two bending moments in it. And
Yep.
this thing would rub a 275 tire on the back just from the back end moving
Yep.
around.
Yep.
I put the sliders on it and now I run a 295 and it's super close. Doesn't rub at all. So just the lateral stiffness is incredible. So
So we started out obviously with the Cooper Cobras, and then we were in
mm,
that 245. Then we went to a used set of 275s, and I finally bought, well, then I put that was I think a 9.5 rim. We
mm,
put a set of 315s on that 9.5 rim, and it would go down the road fine, but as soon as you hit a corner, it'd rub everywhere, and it was a little
yeah.
too much rubbing to be comfortable. So we went back to a 275, and then last year we bought different wheels for it. Went up to a 10-inch rim, which is basically as big as I can run before I have to start getting real creative and/or
Mm,
really open the pocketbook. Unfortunately, I'm at a position now where I've kind of maximized what's on the car.
right.
And to go even a 285 and really make it work, or a 295, or anything bigger, I'd have to drop probably 15, 20 grand into a
Whew.
custom tub frame, and
Mm,
mini. I'd have to do a real mini tub. Right now it just has a hammer mini tub, and I probably wouldn't be able to run leafs anymore. I'd have to narrow the whole leaf package, because same thing, I'm hitting leafs
mm,
and wheel wells, and even if I did wider wheel wells, the leafs would still be in the way.
mm,
um, of the front eye, especially. And if I tried to pinch it the wrong way, it would make the car kind of rear steer heavily,
right. Right.
and would not be fun in either drag race or autocross or street driving.
Nah. A
So,
friend of mine at our local SCCA, he's got a 69 Nova and he's got all of the ride tech, the rear 4 bar setup, mini
yeah,
tub and all of that. So he's got 315s on the back with a mini tub and a hammer mini tub.
yep.
And
We
then
have
the 275s in the front. So
So I have a twin. So my Nova was originally butternut yellow or amherst gold, whichever color you want to, think
mm,
about it back then. Bench seat car 307. Well, we found another car exactly the same color, bench combo, everything sitting in the woods in Pennsylvania. I've owned that car now for far too long for it being in the condition it's in. It's staring at me, in the corner. You can't see it, but I can. It's been sitting on blocks for 10 years plus. But I have a 335 tire underneath the rear of that one right now, and I'm going to
Ooh,
make the mini tubs and everything like that work with that car.
mm,
We're probably going to do the Ride Trek 4 link, a Ballard special. I'll send it off to Dan and crew over there
mm,
in Ohio for their customizations. They have their own trickery they do to the Ride Tech kit to make it work
mm.
even better. The original Ride Tech had some issues and they updated it, and Dan has his own combination that they do to make it work that much better. So I'll
Cool.
kind of this car, I'll probably do less power. So ultimate goal is the orange car will become primarily a drag and drive car,
Mm,
and just a regular street car. Everything I own will always stay on the street regardless.
mm,
And then the other car will probably become a gold car, and it'll be primarily an autocross car, pro touring car.
yeah.
Based on health, I'm kind of probably calmed down here. I've been pushing real hard for a few years, trying to improve and do as much as I can do.
Mm,
Multi-day events get me, especially like a single day event. I can punish myself, and then I'll take 2, 3 days to recover. We get like King of the Mountain and Muscle on the Mountain and Autocross Week and Six Summer and all these multi-day events. You get a bad day, and the next thing I can't focus on my line. I'm
mm,
focused on pain, and that just doesn't make the driving any fun.
right.
The last few years, I've made as many driver mods for comfort and security and all that stuff as I have car mods to try and make sure that I can get as much time in the car. I run a full containment seat now.
Hmm,
I run a full Hans device with a neck SFI pillow as well to help, because the Hans works in about a 45-degree angle away and side to side, or
mm,
excuse me, front and back. It
front
does
back, yeah.
not work greater than 30 to 40 degrees going to the side. So
Uh,
between the seat and the neck pillow, that kind of helps the side to side action. And then, heaven forbid, I ever met, semi solid object, the Hans would stop me from having any forward neck injuries. Any of you on the fence for something like that, do it. Your safety is number one. When you get injured, jumping off 5-ton trucks when you were young or getting crushed by vehicles when you were not so young,
mm,
you can't go back and redo it. So same thing. A lot of us want to go fast. Autocross speeds are getting faster and faster. I think the second year I did Cam Challenge, some of the faster cars were leaving the slalom at over 100 mile an hour.
dang.
And all it takes is one long tickle or a debeated tire or something like that to put you in a wall.
Mm,
Some of us have been at LS Fest, unfortunately, when cars have met a firm object, and that's rough, especially these old cars. Some of these old timers are, man, these cars, the real old timers know these cars do not crash well.
no.
The middle old timers, guys like me, they think they crash well until they see them crash, and then they realize these things crash horribly.
Yeah.
You're much better off in a newer car, fourth gen Camaro or newer or something like that than you are in these old tin boxes. They crash horribly.
Yeah.
The roll cage is a safety measure as much as it is a downfall. I spent a lot of time when I put the cage in the car getting myself low and centered of the car to get away from the cage, and then
Mm,
tucking the cage as hard as I could to the pillar. And I'll still have incidences where if I didn't cinch the belts tight enough and I hit some
hit
hard
the head.
bumps, the helmet will still well, my head won't, because when I'm down in the seat, but you add that, 2 inches of
Mm.
cone on top of your head for the helmet, and your helmet will bash it. Now, if you did it wrong and you can't cinch them down in a run, you'll come out of the day with a heck of a headache from bouncing your head off the roll bar all day. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So is the motor still a junkyard special with a turbo?
it is. So it's not as junkyardy now, but it
Mm,
really still is. So the original motor was a 5.3.
mm,
I got a heck of a deal on a 6-liter LQ9. I run that motor for 6 years. It was a stock bottom end. We put King bearings in it. I don't even remember whose rings we put in it. Ran a Elgin 1840Ps, aka the Sloppy Stage 2 cam.
mm.
Pack 1218 springs. We eventually went to like a BTR 650 RevMax spring. Back then I was spinning the motor to like 8,500 RPM on a
Dang.
stock bottom end. It was hurting the transmission more than it was hurting the motor. If I'd have had a stick shift, I probably wouldn't have had any problems, but I was basically pushing the converter into the thrust and
Yeah.
running too much issues with that. So we were having more transmission issues than we
Mm.
were engine issues spinning it that fast.
So 4L80?
Um, 4L80E,
Mm.
basically stock with a Jake's shift improver kit and a Jake's triple billet converter. And I've been running that transmission that way since 2016, 2017. It needs a refresh this year. It's still holding strong, but it's starting to get where even in park and neutral, even in neutral, you can feel it trying to drive the car forward. It's just having some issues and I'd rather not waste the converter and, just purposely destroy the case.
Right.
It is getting slightly harder to find, cheap 4L80E cores. So, save it as much as I can.
Yeah, of course.
There
So,
is talk to go into a handshaker, but, until I can justify, like, and a lot of people come up to me, bless their heart, I wish I had the money to do it, because I won't go down in power. I went a little bit down in power when we hurt the 6-liter. We went to an aluminum 5.3, but then this year I kind of found most of that power back. And based on trap speeds and car weight, I'm pushing somewhere in the ballpark of 900 to 1,000 horsepower to the wheels at the current combination.
That's crazy.
Until somebody can find me a streetable clutch that'll last more than 2 years and not destroy the transmission and cost me, $2,000 to $3,000 every 2 years to repair.
Yeah.
Uh, I
Stick
really want
shift
to do,
things at that power.
yeah,
Big
it's hard.
money.
It's
Big.
hard. And the gold car will probably go, stick shift because of it'll more than likely I'll either do like a nice easy supercharger or something like that, something in the 600-700 range.
Mm,
Justin Peachy made a good comment this year. He's always had a lot of power with a lot of the cars he's had. And a lot of people have said, well, you're only fast, Justin, because you have power. And that was a part of it, but it's not all of it. Justin is an amazing driver
yeah.
and he can make almost anything go fast. Well, he proved it this year, though, that power does sort of matter. He lost the built motor out
Yep.
of the C6
Mm,
and he went to a junkyard 5.3. Unfortunately, I think with better tuning, he would have fared better, but he showed up at King of the Mountain with the junkyard 5.3 and a horrible tune because they worked all night just to get the thing running. And he had no power. I think by the end of the day, they had it working okay, but it wasn't the normal Justin. They had a heck
yeah.
of a turbo lag. It was a little bit too much turbo, I think, for the combo, and a few other things were kind of hindering them. With an auto car, I can kind of lay into the throttle, ride the converter, and get some, heat into the turbo to, get it spooling kind of quickly coming out of a corner. With a stick car, you really can't. I mean, sure, you can left foot brake it and, 2 foot it, but you're not really getting an additional RPM. You're just throwing a little bit of energy into the exhaust. So he wasn't really
Yeah.
getting any, he wasn't getting a good
Mm,
quick spool out of the turbo coming out of corners and was really suffering with turbo lag. But he said it. He said, "Yeah, I used to think power didn't matter, and it doesn't matter as much as some people think it does, but it does matter. If you've only got 300 horsepower, especially if it's a bigger track, you're just probably not going to be able to hang with the guys with
right. I think it
6 or 7.
matters. I think it matters if you're the caliper driver that he is.
You have to
Yeah.
know how to use it.
Mm,
Big power is amazing. It's addicting. It's super fun. But what people don't understand is I have a little 11 position pot switch in the car.
mm,
I can make the car make 400 horsepower or 900 horsepower. And most time when I'm doing autocross, it's turned way down. It's 4, 5, 600 horsepower at most. Um, some of the bigger tracks, I'll turn it up a little bit, but then you start running into issues with overpowering the rear coming out of a corner because I'm an idiot and kind of get on the throttle a little too hard, too fast. You know,
but it's
um,
fun.
it is fun. Some of my good friends, like Ramey said, if you can't be fast, be fabulous. And good Kenny would always
Mm,
say, "Hey, you can't be fast, be fabulous." And I've been
mm.
fabulous a few times, and thankfully, I haven't hurt the car too bad yet. Had a semi-close call at UMI the one year. The finish was in the middle of 3 and 4, and coming out of the slalom, if you just touch it just a little too early, it'd
Mm.
start sliding the tires. And I put it into the infield ditch twice that year, and then
Dude.
decided I needed to calm down a little bit before I actually hurt something. And
Oh,
so,
geez.
but it's fun, being able to drift a corner at 80 mile an hour, to step on the throttle and break them loose it's super fun when you want to and when you're ready for it. When you're not ready for it, it's not so much fun.
Right. What size turbo is that?
It's 78, 75
Okay.
with a 125 back housing.
Mm,
And then I bought a larger compressor cover for it too. So it looks a lot bigger than it is, and it is bigger than a conventional 78, 75, but it's a little too small for the 6 liter. And to be honest, for autocross, it's a little bit too big for the 5.3. I could go with just like if I had the 9.6 back housing for the 5.3, I think I'd run a little bit better.
mm,
The 125 back housing in a 6 liter was perfect for autocross, a little too small for drag racing. This current turbo is really good for drag racing, but I got a slightly bigger T4 sitting on the shelf I picked up this year just for drag events.
okay.
The goal, either this year or next year, depending on how my health is, and we're also getting a daughter a car ready for this year. She's going to compete.
That's
I've
cool.
tried, guys. I've tried to get her into autocross. She doesn't like it. But she's long as she's into motorsports, I'm fine with it. So we picked her up a 4th-gen Firebird,
Mm,
and she's going to take it drag racing. So she's going to
okay.
do 6 summer with me this year. We're going to do dual drive the
Awesome.
event. She's going to be in I'm going to try and make the car around 1150, 12.0 car,
Mm,
stick her in a, dial your own bracket class and let her have fun with that.
yeah.
I'm gonna try and run my first 8 second in a drag and drive trim.
Okay.
So the car and me have been as fast as a 9.2 at 154 in drag racing trim. And
Mm,
then this year, grand champion was the fastest I've ever been on a drag on a true 200 treadweight autocross tire. We lined up against Randall down at LS Fest. He actually was the very first one to ever break the record. He ran a 998 on his inaugural pass that this year, and
mm,
I ran a 1002. Uh, the next run, he spun off the line, and I ran a what I run, a 996 or something like that. I think I beat him by 2/10 or something like that, or two
mm.
hundredths, excuse me. And then the third pass, he basically got to the top of first gear and it upset the car, and he ended up aborting the pass. And I screwed up. I could have gone significantly faster, but I still use a column shift in that car,
Oh, wow.
with no indicator.
Mm,
So, I just feel and count, what
yeah.
gear I'm in. Well, I miscounted because I kind of, had to back up once or twice to get the car lined up. And I
Mm,
was only in second gear. I wasn't in third gear.
uh,
So 1-2 shift car. I mean, the car left, it was on a pass.
mm,
God bless the crew down there at Beach Bend this year. They gave us an amazing track. The guys they actually listened to us last year. I have to admit, I was totally against Thursday drag racing at LS Fest, mainly because one, it's another day off work
mm.
because I can't get there Thursday and get the car turned around off the trailer and everything ready to go and be ready for drag racing. So I've got to leave Wednesday night at the latest to get down there. Normally it's hotter than heck on a Thursday, so
Mm.
that hurts the DA, it hurts the car, it hurts the power potential. And then the track's greasy. Anytime the sun is, beating on the track, it's just greasy. They listened to us, they delayed the track or starting just a little bit, gave us 3 full runs, and did a good prep on the track. And the last pass, it shifted 1-2, left hard, shifted 1-2. I was in the car just cheering myself on, and then I could hear it just climb a little bit too high in second gear. And about the time my mind said, "What the heck's going on?" It was bouncing off the rev limiter.
Shoot.
You can see it in the video. You can see like it looks like it puffs smoke. Well, that's it sitting on the rev limiter.
Reveler,
And
yeah.
I did post an in car at one time. You can really hear it, sitting on the chip for a second while I'm jamming it to get it
Yeah.
up in the third gear. But we ran I don't even remember. I don't even remember what we ran now. 9.8 something, 9.81 or something like that.
Let's go.
142. Josh, I'm still waiting for my slip. I turned in the record holding slip. I got the second fastest slip in the house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You
Um,
don't get to keep them. You can take a picture of it. That's about it.
I have the picture of it, but I want the physical slip.
I'm
So
with, yeah.
in my house, which I meant to do this in the office, but the lighting, I'm having internet issues, so I'm on the
Mm,
phone, and then the lighting in the office is poor, so I'm out in the
mm,
garage tonight. So sorry about the heater, but it is
yeah.
only 22 degrees outside, so trying to.
I can't hear it, so it doesn't matter.
But
Shoot. What,
yeah, I have all the LS Fest posters from all the
oh,
years
yeah.
that I've gone around the wall, and then this
Mm,
year I stuck. I ended up earning a check from the good group there
mm.
at Optima. Was it Optima that does that, or
Well,
he's
FM3 cut you a check.
FM3
And I
FM3
only know
marketing.
that because I won this year. Otherwise, I wouldn't know.
Yep. So, got the check from them. I can officially declare myself a professional race car driver because I had to pay taxes. They always say
Right.
you can't declare yourself professional until you had to fill out a tax form, and I had to
Uh,
do that this year. So,
yeah, I guess I will too. So I didn't think of it
yep,
that way. I mean,
yep,
I know they'll send me a tax form, but yeah,
yep.
yeah, count me as a pro driver.
There you go. So I was
Uh,
super excited. I was happy that, and even some of the guys had approached us at the end of the event, and they were happy that we beat it in traditional grand champion cars, Randall and I both, because, as somebody had said, next year is ZR1X. Somebody's going to run that event as ZR1X next year.
mm,
And out of the trim, out of the box, that car is going to break a 9 second quarter mile
yeah.
time. And they felt like that would be a little bit of cheating
I,
to
I,
take a borderline supercar
mm,
and do the quarter mile record with it. So
right. I think it means more when you do it in something old, you know.
yep,
you know.
Yeah, Randall hand built his car over the years. I've hand built my car over the years. There's everything on my car is me. I've built
Cool.
the motor myself. It's a stock bottom end 5.3 with good bearings, Elgin sloppy stage 2 cam. I ran Elgin 1840 or Elgin springs in it this year. Put Elgin push rods, all this stuff. It's a whole Elgin top end package, head gaskets, head bolts, everything.
Mm.
We were testing how hard we could push it, and I'll say I pushed it all the way to 32 pounds. At 32 pounds, it started to have issues with either blowing a spark out or I was lifting the
Lifting
valves.
heads. Oh,
No, I,
okay.
I never lifted the head. We don't have any
Really?
pulling issues, but I was blowing a
Hmm.
spark out or something at the top end of the track. You could feel it kind of lay over a little
Layover.
bit.
Hmm.
And because the trap speed should have been a little higher, I was carrying enough speed to probably do like 148, 150, and I think I was getting like 142
Mm.
on the record pass, 142 or 144, and you could just feel it in the top end of the track after about 6,800 RPM or so, and it would still normally run out pretty hard, and it'd start kind of, it's not exactly a fall on its
Yeah.
face, but
Yeah.
you'd feel it,
Mm.
struggling a little bit. So
Yeah. Would
then we
it
turned it back down and beat on it, and it's still fine. So,
still
and we
good? Yeah. When
haven't
you
lost any coolant.
That's
So.
good. When you do the 6 week, do you run like a drag radial on it, I suppose?
Yep. So,
Yeah.
both years so far that we've done it, and this year will be a little different. We've done absolutely nothing like physically to the car to change it from an autocross car to a drag car. Um, I have a plexiglass rear spoiler,
Mm.
rear wing, deck
Yep.
spoiler on it.
Mm.
I lay it back. I has multiple holes in it where I can move
Mm.
the strut and lay it down or stand it up. So I'll lay it down for drag racing.
Mm.
I put a trailer hitch on it with a parachute because with the old motor I was crossing over 150 and I needed a parachute to be legal.
Mm.
Um, we would adjust shock settings. It's Viking Warriors on the rear, Crusaders on the front. We would just, mess with the shock settings. I'd kind of increase the front ride height just a smidgen to help with weight transfer.
Mm.
And then the big thing is taking the front splitter off. The front splitter really does bury the nose in that car. So I was taking the front splitter off to pick up a little bit of mile an hour. I ran sick week this year with it on, and I could definitely tell. And even this year, I got some good pictures of it. And it's really burying the nose at the top
Mm.
end of the track at 148 mile an hour with that splitter on the front. So I was having a
Interesting.
little too much front end aerodynamic, a little too much front end aerodynamics with it on there.
Mm.
And it's kind of a sharp angle the way it sits. I needed to adjust it a little bit for that.
Right.
Really, it's on there for ground protection. The front air dam is just a fiberglass air dam.
Mm.
So on those events, you're entering parking lots and you're on the road. So
Yeah.
car sits low enough in the front, you hit one of those of that fiberglass and it's just going to explode. So
Right.
the splitter is on aluminum struts. So if I ever bottom out the car, the splitter takes all the weight and saves the air dam and
Huh.
everything else. So
Cool. What did you do any test runs and with the 200 treadwear tire prior to going to LS Fest?
I went one weekend and we made some runs. Didn't really get any good data from them. Unfortunately, my buddy that I went took with me that event didn't understand my phone versus his phone. That whole Apple and Android controversy. I'm an Android guy and he's an Apple guy.
Mm.
So I handed my phone and said, "Hey, record in slow mo so I can see what the car is doing and how hard I can hit it." And went up and we made a run. And because I kind of got there late, I just decided, the car didn't need a ton of cool down time. I wasn't going for an ultimate top end. I was just looking for a good 60 foot. So I was hot lapping the car and I wasn't really, getting with him between the things. He was recording in hyperlapse. So I got
Uh,
zero data from the phone on what the car was doing. I basically just knew that I could hold it, at like 2,100 RPM on the two step and let it go, and it normally would hold. I think in drag racing trim, I'm like over 3,600 RPM and push and boost when I let off the. And it doesn't have a trans brake. I'm foot braking the car, but I have like a low RPM two step to try to help hold it there and
mm.
make it more consistent.
That's
We
cool.
did add weight to the car actually to make the record pass. We added weight to the trunk
Okay.
just to help hold the car down. We bolted down, I think, 150 pounds in the trunk of the car to help with rear end bite.
Hmm.
As everybody thinks, oh, a car has to be lighter, lighter, lighter. I went across the scales at somewhere in the ballpark of 3,900 pounds
Dang.
with me in the car on the record pass.
That's
So
cool. That's that's pretty. So I assume you went there with it in your mind that you wanted to run a nine.
I had to,
Yeah.
I knew that the clock was ticking. I
Mm,
wasn't the only one chasing this record. It had been held, I think this was the 16th year of LS Fest, if I remember. It's 16th running. And of course, now they've had a few Wests and a few Texas
mm.
LS Fest too. So it wasn't just LS Fest East. I was running against all the
The,
LS
the
Fest
whole
around
country,
Grand
right? Yeah.
Champion. And I think there was three of us, or maybe even four of us, that had run like a bottom 10, like a 10:01 or a 10:10. Um, and I think two of the cars didn't make it this year that were also shooting for it. There was a gentleman in a C6 or C5 Corvette that had run really bottom, 10:0s, 10:1s. I didn't see him this year. And then there was the Nissan truck. I can't think of his name.
Oh yeah.
Last year he had issues with the truck. A lot of us go untested. We're working on everybody else's junk. We barely have time to work on our own. So
Right.
you don't get a lot of testing sometimes, and he showed up untested last year and didn't get the showing he was hoping for. And then this year, I guess he had job restrictions or whatever. He was obligated to be somewhere else. So
Mhm.
um, I won't say I wasn't happy that he wasn't there, but I kind of was semi relieved that he wasn't there because I knew he was one of the, Randall, him, and me were sort of the top three for going
Mm.
for that record. So
That's cool. Yeah. They mentioned it at the awards thing
yeah.
for Mo Party. Oh shoot. What's his name? The guy that announces it. The big beard. I can't remember his name.
Oh, not Ryan. Why is it
Uh,
CJ? No.
I forget his the grassroots
Yeah.
motorsports guy. Uh,
Yes. Mini trucking guy. Man, he's everywhere.
yeah, what
Oh
the
man, he's
hell?
gonna he's gonna kick our butts when
I
we don't
know he
remember
is.
his name.
Why I
Like
can't remember his name.
Chad. It's
Yeah,
Chad.
Chad Reynolds.
Chad Reynolds.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chad.
Yeah, he was giving us Mopar guys trouble for uh, you know, not being as fast as LS guys, but it is what it is.
It is.
There's not as many of us. So, you
No,
know.
and it's the people that run autocross competitively that also drag race are very few.
Oh
There's
yeah.
not too many people that are super multidisciplined. There's people that are multidisciplined, they're autocrossers, they're time attackers, they're
Mm.
drifters, they're drag racers, hard park to sparkers and all these other different things. But there's not too many that are super competitive in multi competition, or they have dedicated cars. So
Mm.
their pro touring car isn't a drag car, and their drag car isn't a pro touring car.
Right.
Um, which I keep saying that I will, kind of single discipline the cars in the future, but I don't know that I can. But the orange car is becoming more known for a drag racing car, and as much as it is an autocross car, it is also becoming known as a drag racing car. But also, what makes it a noticeable drag racing car is the fact that it's a pro touring car that goes
Right.
out and does the drag racing. I show up, the first year I showed up into the tech line, guys like, you don't belong here. You're a pro touring guy, aren't you? Like, yep. And I said, yeah, we can tell just looking over the car. And then I had a lot of people approach me that first year and they said, we've had a few, autocross pro touring guys come out and do these, sick week, drag week. A lot of those guys that do that drag and drive, they're running more than just the sick summer or the sick week. They're running drag week, they're running Rocky Mountain Race Week, they're running Death Week, they're running all
Mm.
these different different events. And I was blown away at how many of them come up to me, especially after the first day. Like, man, you're actually fast.
Right.
You're not running 12, 13, 14 second times. You're out here running bottom nines, high, bottom tens, high nines. First year we were running all bottom nines. This last year we were struggling during. We actually had a better showing in autocross trim than we did in drag race trim.
Dang.
During the event,
Mm.
we had hurt the 6 liter. I got the 5.3 together, but had basically zero testing because of weather and time frame and job requirements. And I retired from the army, so I was doing with retirement and everything else. And we went up there, and I think we ran basically like 9.8s, and I think I maybe had like a 9.9, almost a 10 second time at one of the tracks, and I was struggling to stay in the nines this last year.
Hmm.
on drag racing trim,
Yeah.
with a really grippy tire and, better suspension settings and everything else.
Yeah.
So
I love everything about it, man. I mean, be able to, I mean, I assume it does pretty good on autocross and, you
it
know,
does. The
yeah.
driver needs a driver mod. The biggest problem, and I'm going to make some changes this year to hopefully make myself better, but I'm not a first run guy. I cannot find my line. I struggled with that, and I'm only, 5, 6 years into autocross, so I'm still learning. I need to
Mm,
go to one of the clinics that they're put off over there in like Ohio region.
mm,
But I struggle with first line speed. These guys, a lot of these fast guys, they're out there finding, they're fast first lap out, and then they're
mm,
finding tenths or hundredths. I'm out there finding seconds at times on second and third runs
oh
because
yeah.
I'm still kind of finding the line. And I'm also trying to find what truly makes me in the car fast because, when I first started autocrossing, I was the ham-fisted, tire smoke every corner, burnouts from cone to cone. And everybody's like, you're too aggressive. You need to slow down, roll the corners, and get faster. And I did that. And guess what? When I would get mad and ham fist the car, I would speed up.
Mm,
So now I'm like, well, what, am I supposed to go slow and smooth? Am I supposed to be, pissed off teenager with tire smoke between corners? You know,
mm,
um, so I'm still trying to figure out what works best for my driving style, my car, the fact that it has, almost unlimited power for like autocross and stuff, and figure out what truly makes the car fast.
right.
We're getting close. And it's not, being ham-fisted all the time, but there definitely is some times where a little bit of lack of concern for yourself and kind of shoving it into a corner sometimes can be the fastest way, depending on where you're headed next,
Mm,
So
yeah. I'm, for the longest time, I thought I needed to get the car right, and the car is finally right. Before I took like a driving, uh, like the not the start, finish line school, SCCA,
yeah,
and I struggled, and I've mentioned this on the show before that I struggle with having a guy that's used to driving a 100 horsepower Miata get in this because it's a completely different animal. I
yeah,
realize driving around cones, they say it's the same regardless, but after talking with some people, and I think the car is to a point now where somebody won't get it in it and think like, oh, geez, this is the car is the problem, not you.
yeah.
So I think I could trust someone now, and I'm considering doing it. I think we do it in April. So,
The
because
biggest thing I've discovered, kind of what you're saying, for years, the person that has a super modified car, no nanny cars as well. That's a big thing, no nannies. It's a rare driver that can jump from a nanny car. Like in our region, I'm the only one. Well, now I've got two other guys addicted and they're building super crazy cars.
perfect.
But I was the only one crazy enough to dump way too much money and power into an old chassis and try to go fast.
Mm,
So we had a hot shoe driver in our area, and he went out with us one event. And no fault of his, he had no practice in the car, but he went out with me to dual drive, and I outdrove him. And I was
mm,
looking for him to outdrive me so that I could pick up speed, and I outdrove him. And it was just because he was not used to that style driving. He was more used to either lower power without nannies or a little, or similar-ish, or kind of that car wasn't making quite the power back then, but he was like, he was used to having some nannies, ABS or TC, traction control,
mm,
analog brakes, something. And as I told people before, especially previously, the car used to try to actively kill you anytime you stepped in it. If you didn't respect the car,
mm,
it would hurt you quickly. It still can. It's a little more predictable with that death, but you can still, if you just don't respect some of these cars, yours as well. Anytime you
mm.
stick more than 400 horsepower in an old chassis without nannies, it only takes, kind of getting a little too stabby with the throttle or tossing it around too much, and you're chasing it around the wrong way through an autocross, field. So
Yeah, just last Sunday, it rained. So, and of course, I'm first run group out. It's wet.
Cam always is. You got to clean the track for everybody.
Yeah. So none of that was good. All of them were terrible. And then of course, second run group goes out starting to dry. So afternoon session comes and it's mostly dry, but we had two big long sweepers and that was full on drift boy all around those. And I was extremely frustrated because I never put together a good run. like you were
Mhm.
saying, you got to learn. Your first one sucks, and you just kind of build
Yep.
as the day goes. Well, from morning to afternoon, it was two different courses,
Yep.
and it was like almost semi-dry, mostly dry. I guess it was dry for the low horsepower guys, the bigger
Hmm.
horsepower guys,
Yep.
and
As soon as you left that preferred lower line, it was
yeah,
slick because it hadn't dried off in that area yet.
yeah,
So
and I'm leaving disappointed, and then I had to remind myself that I do this for fun, and who cares, you know. So,
the the changes between last year and this year were minimal. We made the steering gearbox change. I think we made it mid-season. It wasn't even a beginning of the season change because I kind of set myself up. Actually, it was because I did it right before King of the Mountain, and I said, "Well, I'm an idiot for changing such a dramatic feel of the car for my biggest event of the year for Autocross." And it worked out in the end. It was definitely a big change, though. But between last year and this year, besides fixing shocks and a few other things, I made minimal changes to the car. And I told myself it's not the car's fault. I need to not just open up the wallet and throw this at it or that
mm,
at it, or blame this or blame that. I need to clean up my act. And it has helped me, get a little bit better with the car. I'm understanding the braking system better and threshold braking, and finally got that, nightmare figured out. Um, Kind of the one of the biggest issues is 14-inch rotors in the front, 11-inch rotors, or maybe not even 11, maybe 10-inch rotors in the rear, and they're
mm,
just single piston single piston floating calipers because it was just a stock 8.8 that I
oh
had
yeah,
done everything I could to it to clear 15-inch wheels.
mm,
And I didn't want to put, $1,500, the brake man brake package on it or Willwood brake package on the rear
mm,
because I'm basically exceeding the power level of the 8.8. So now I need to either step it up to a 9-inch or some other rear end. So I didn't want to throw money at the brakes. So I was making do with the rear brakes that I had, and we were exceeding the different between piston diameter between the front and rear was so dramatic that we had to go to the Willwood dual master setup
oh,
um,
okay,
for the braking system with a balance bar.
okay,
And I finally, with brake pad changes and the balance bar and Vector Force Industries out of Wisconsin helped me out a lot with the braking package. I got to thank Justin and the team up there for doing all they did to get the braking package figured out for me. They really helped me, figure out, okay, with this pad compound versus, because the rears were kind of set. We couldn't really do anything else to them. We made them as good as we could. It was an Explorer 8.8 with F-150 rear calipers. They have a slightly bigger bore.
okay,
And Explorer Sport Track, the pad is the full width of the rotor. Because if you ever ran an 8.8, the pad's kind of like half
mm,
thickness of the rotor, where the Explorer Sport Track, like 2000 Sport Track, is the thickest
okay,
pad. It actually hits the whole surface.
mm.
And EBC Yellow actually has a pad for that. So at
Yeah,
least
I
it's
was
not
I
a
was gonna
crappy
ask if
compound.
somebody made a pad
Yep.
for it.
EBC makes a yellow compound for that, and I've gone Porterfield. I had them custom do, I think R43s or something like that for the rears before too.
Mm.
They work, but they're the noisiest son of a suckers. You sound full, Australian supercar when you're running those suckers because they're just the noisiest brakes in the world when I'm running them. So,
Yeah, I put
uh,
Hawk pads. I have
hmm
Mustang G like 95 Mustang GT
yep,
rotors and calipers on the back, and the bias was kind of terrible because I have
yep,
like 14-inch six piston Willwood in the front, and I think
yep,
it's the 30 I think that comes with their calipers. Maybe I don't remember.
hmm
Um, but the back just kind of sucked. They were just kind of long for
yep,
the ride. And then
yep.
I put some Hawk pads on it. Man, night day difference. But man, them suckers are dirty. Golly.
Yes,
I mean,
this last year was trying to find the best benefit between grip and dirtiness because I don't want to clean the wheel every time I drive the car, but I also want it to not look like it's a pure on race car every time I take it for a spin. So
mm,
I probably put you know 5, 6, 7,000 miles of driving on the car, just going back and forth to work in a year, but
oh, nice.
without being in competition. So,
Mm,
I need something that's streetable, as well as, able to stop me in an autocross. But I'm little too many projects to, like, these guys that bring their car in and they'll change brake pads out between competition set, street set. I ain't got all the time for
No.
that. So, I needed something that worked the best that I could make do between street and, race
Yeah.
trim. So,
Yeah. All I do is in this picture here behind me, that's street tires. So I just swap wheels and tires, and then I have
yep,
a seat. I made the seat bolt into my street seat brackets. So it's like
yep.
four bolts and wheels, and that's my autocross setup. I'm not changing pads. To heck with that.
We we finally upgraded last year to an autocross specific wheel tire combo, so I didn't have to destroy the autocross tires and street trim and
Hmm.
vice versa. So I change tires and then that's it. I don't change seat or anything else. Now I will say, full containment seat on the street sucks.
Mm.
Especially my car is a non right hand mirror factory option.
I don't have one either.
Um, so with the old seat, you can just easily, kind of look over your shoulder and see. I went as far as adding a video camera on the back of the car to the radio, so I have a little video screen
Oh,
for rear view visibility, and I'm going to
yeah.
change the rear view mirror to the
Oh, just
video
yeah, yeah.
mirrors, and I'm going to add a right camera, a front camera, and a rear camera to that setup so that I can actually see. Because blind spot, it's a lot of times what you just do is you sit there for a while and you just jam the throttle because nobody's going to jam it with you, and then just
Right.
dive over. You go, I'm clear now,
Right. So you wait for another car to pass, and you just jump
Or
in
I have
behind
to
them
really,
quick.
if I really loosen the belts up, then I can kind of, eject myself out of the seat and look over. But then, because I know what loose belts do to you, then you're cinching your belts back down. You're doing
Mm.
this belt dance in the car if you're trying to drive it like that. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. My seat's not full containment, but it's still hard to see. It's just
yep,
hard to turn around. Just,
yep.
but and it depends on if I have, a few weeks between events and I'm not really going, if I'm just hitting a cruise night or something, I might just change tires or something and leave the seat in
Yep.
there, even though it only takes a couple minutes to swap it.
Yep.
But the regular seat is much more comfortable. You know?
So I found I think I'm a, gosh dang, Saybelt. I think I'm running a Saybelt containment seat, and it actually is doing me really well. I ran a Kirky in that car. I ran a Corbu, and I ran a Corbu like the GTS2s.
Mm.
Okay, comfortable. They weren't as comfortable as kind of hoping were. Horrible sun fading. I mean, I don't know what
Uh,
Corbu puts in them things, but they would sun fade sitting in a garage, for crying out loud.
Crazy.
And the wife still has hers on her side. She says I'm not allowed changing it. She loves her Corbu GTS2. Then we did a Corbu, like a fixed fiberglass seat, and it was old and outdated. So then we went to a Kirky drag style seat for drag racing, and I did a drag and drive with that seat. I had bought like a stuffed animal at Dollar General and shoved it under my butt for the street drive because I was just beating myself up. So come home from that first drag and drive, and my daughter finds that stuffed animal. She's like, "Oh, cool! This is where my stuffed animal is." Like, I don't know if you want that thing. That thing's been
No.
riding underneath my butt for 2,000 miles. Let's at least wash it first.
Right. Oh, shoot. Oh
Yeah,
man.
that was the year we were using the Milwaukee fan to dry the windshield off going through the Ohio rain. I'm
Do you
still
have
waiting. I think his name's Justin. One of the guys from Summit Racing happened to catch us as we were going around Ohio.
mm,
Torrential rain, horrible rainfall. And here I am in 70 miles, 70 Nova with my little. If you ever seen the picture on my profile page, I got a little like 5 foot trailer I have a carbon fiber flagpole on it. I've proven 120 mile an hour that flag still stands, allegedly. Um, Never on the street.
no,
And
no, of course not.
But yeah, he caught me in the rain and snapped a whole bunch of photos and stuff. And he said, "Oh, I'll meet you up after the race." And we haven't been able to link up since.
Yeah,
But
okay. Do you have
last year we almost put
AC
that.
heater now? No.
I don't even have a heater.
No, okay.
I put a Vintage Air Mini in it, but I never hooked up the heater lines. But at least it has the fan, so the fan kind of helps. It grabs. Novas have non-AC cars. You open up the vents, and it's got great airflow into the car. So as long as you're moving, they actually do a pretty good job. You got the 55 mile an hour air
Oh yeah.
conditioning
The vent windows, yeah.
from the wingman windows.
Mm.
But it would blow right into that Vintage Air Mini, and then I just turned a defroster fan on, and it would clean the windshield for me. But that first year we had nothing. We didn't have a heater box at all because the turbo is mid-mounted on the engine. It's
Mm.
most drag racers, the turbo is kind of in front of the motor.
Mm.
Mine is in line with the middle two cylinders. And
Okay.
the 4-inch down tube is so tight to it that even with a smooth firewall or the heater panel delete, it's basically right against the the firewall. So
Ooh,
there's
yeah.
no space to get a factory heater box in there.
Hmm.
So
Jeez. Do you
we
have exhaust
I,
or does that thing have a dump on it?
full 4-inch exhaust.
Yeah. That's cool. That's helpful when you're driving on the road.
It is. It actually is louder though. So I've put like a 90. One of the disconnects is right underneath the passenger seat, and I've like stuck a 90 to just shoot it out under the passenger door before.
Hmm.
And it's quieter on the highway that way than with it going out the back, because a lot of the old muscle cars, they would turn the exhaust down right
But
behind the rear tire.
mm,
Well, that's the way mine is, because I like not seeing the exhaust from behind the car.
yeah.
Well, that echo where it's shooting off the ground and then coming back up just beats the ears off of you as you're going down the highway. So,
Yeah. It's just because we're getting old. That's why the noise bothers us. That's all.
yeah, I'd like to prove a theory, and I know some guys, kind of nerd out on aerodynamics, but I have a feeling or an assumption that if I actually change the exhaust to straight out the back, it
Mm,
would improve some of my rear end grip at say 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. Because when that thing's pushing, 7,000 RPM and
push.
basically shooting down into the
Hmm.
ground, it's lifting the rear of the car up. So I know some of our, more nerdy friends that have the huge calculators and, the desire to do that stuff.
Right.
Maybe sometime we could link up and try to measure, rear lift.
Mm. My mine
I
points straight back, and I went faster this year at in Bowling Green than I did last year, and unchanged. I mean,
yeah,
I did throw 1 degree of timing at it, and look, it could have been better air, but it went 2 mile an hour faster,
yep.
which is it seems like a lot to me. I don't know how much air could change mile an hour by, but two seems a lot for an NA car, you know.
For an NA car, it is quite a bit. Turbo cars and stuff. A degree of timing seems to make more of a difference in the motor.
Mm,
You'd have to be like severely undertimed for 1 degree to give you that much of a kick in power. Which is
yeah.
possible. A lot of people don't understand. Modern cars don't take as much timing as older cars. You're not throwing
Hmm.
36 degrees of timing in it, but it all depends on the fuel you're running too. Like with the 85, I can run pretty aggressive timing maps
Mm.
in the higher RPMs. Unfortunately, I got greedy with the other motor, and I started trying to push harder in the middle of the power band and wrinkled the rods.
No,
But they had
yeah.
a lot of, I have a tight converter for what I do,
Mm.
and just put a little bit too much power in at 4,400 RPM and hurt the rod. So,
Yeah. Have you ever seen the stock piston out of a Hemi? The top ring land. That's why nobody does what they do with LSs because
there's
it's not
basically no
much.
meat there to lift the
No
ring. Yeah,
meat right there. And I just run pump gas. So, everybody says, oh, 22 to 24 degrees is the most you want to put in these things. And
yep. Even with
oh,
like the
yeah.
LSs, I normally shoot for like 26 degrees or so and then kind of narrow it down from there. Sometimes depending on if they'll always run 93 and it's good quality 93 and they're not going to run Vegas heat or whatever,
Mm,
you can, trickle it in, say above, 5,800, 6,000, start trickling it in a degree per, 200, 300, 400 RPM.
mm,
But that's where you really need to be at a drag strip or road course where you can repetitively measure like either straightaway speed or overall speed at
mm.
the corner to corner or something. Because as soon as you see that, oh, we didn't gain anything, well then back up a
Back
degree
it up.
because you
Yeah.
found max timing.
Mm,
Back it up, make it a little bit safer, and then lock it down. That's where you want to run it. So,
right. Yeah. And then you got to balance risk versus reward, I
yep.
mean,
Yeah. How many
yeah,
of us have spare motors sitting underneath the bench, in the garage, ready to go? And
I don't.
um, this year, because of scarcity and availability, I actually have 5 motors in the shop right now in
Hmm.
various stages of build. I've got a copycat of the old original 6 liter, and I've got four aluminum blocks, one 6 liter and three 5.3s
Oh,
that
nice.
I've snagged up through the year. The 6 liter needs full machine work. Unfortunately, the bores are hurting that motor, so it needs to go to the machine shop, possibly be sleeved. one of the 5.3s is a mystery. I picked it up and haven't even, pulled the heads off of it yet. It supposedly lost oil pressure and locked up. So I assume it's going to need, it probably need a crank, maybe bore work, depending on how bad it was beat.
Mm.
And then I have two 5.3s that I'm going to try and maximize, do like a Summit Pro LS package and try to make like 1,400 horsepower and kill mode with those motors.
Hmm.
Um, we're going to keep with the Elgin. I partnered up with Elgin, running their cam package. We're going to switch to one of their more aggressive springs and try to, with the bigger turbo, better spring, and stronger rod, we're going to really try and put some power down with that combo. We already
Hmm.
went, like I said, we've already broke the grand champion, autocross drag record, and we're going to try and make it a lot harder for somebody to just sneak in there and take it from us next year. So
Yeah, that'd be sweet if you can get, you know, bottom eights. I mean, bottom nines.
bottom mid, I think mid that pass was probably a mid nine. I think without the mess up between two and three,
Hmm.
um, and I was exceeding the power limits of that turbo and exceeding the power limits probably of the spring package. And the cam's a little bit too small for the RPM I was turning it, but it's a decent cam for that RPM range and the cubic inches and all that stuff. What I did is I bought a bigger turbo though. So what we'll do
Hmm.
next year is we're actually going to do a turbo change between autocross and drag racing instead of just showing up in the same trim. We're actually going to put a bigger turbo on it for drag racing and then rip the turbo off and put the smaller turbo on it for autocross trim and try to really maximize it between events. And I was talking to a friend, and maybe people can chime in on this video and give me an idea. Subframes for those cars are 4 bolts and they're out. I've considered having a whole pull away subframe set up for drag racing and one set up for autocross and pulling the whole subframe out and shoving a whole subframe in because it's simple to do, on
Hmm.
these old cars, it's 4 bolts and it's out. I can make some quick connects on the wiring harness and a few other things and I could have it changed in, 4 hours.
It depends on how much
But
work you want to do in the pits.
well, what truly makes it a dual purpose car is pulling, a whole subframe out and shoving a whole subframe in. Is that really the same car anymore? You know
I
what I
don't,
mean? I don't
I
think
don't,
it is.
I don't think so
I've
either.
considered I've considered just changing motors because the steel motors are stronger and more durable. Putting the
Hmm.
steel motor in it for drag racing and then pulling the steel motor out and putting the aluminum motor in for autocross. And I had a buddy tell me that was kind of cheating. So let's go with that one alone. Do you think switching the entire long block out between disciplines is that cheating for a multi-discipline car? Or should I keep one motor, unless I blow it up? Should I keep one style motor in it for both disciplines and just change turbos, or should I, change whole engines out for, shooting for both?
I think it, I mean, personally for me, I don't think it's cheating. And it just depends on your goal, right? If you're trying to go and win a class in autocross and then win a class in drag and drive, I think it needs to be the same setup to
Yeah,
prove, that it's the same car doing the same thing at these high levels. But
yeah,
if you're just going, oh, I'm going to do drag and drive and I want to go fast,
yeah,
then, put the big motor in it and let it
yeah,
eat, you know.
yeah.
Um, I'm not a big fan of micro records, so my opinion may be different than others.
I never, I don't, I like the fact that this one is a bigger micro record. It's
Well,
like a
I wouldn't
minor
consider it.
record.
I'll go back and say I don't think that yours is a micro record. I'm talking
But
about the
I've
guys,
seen,
know.
like I'll pick on the stereotypical Corvette owner. Mine's the only white car that was built
Right.
on a Tuesday with blue interior in 1984, and
Right.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the drag racers that are like, well, what's the fastest stock block LS in a G body with one Cooper Cobra tire and one
Yeah.
Michelin tire? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
looking for
That's
stuff
dumb.
like that.
No, that's dumb.
I think those are ridiculous. But when you're saying, okay, like stock bottom end guys are crazy.
No.
I used to think stock bottom end meant it was stock cranks, stock rods, stock pistons, probably
Mm,
even too, with just bearings and rings and things like that. And then
mm,
people were telling me, no, it just means that the block itself isn't, aftermarket, or maybe or maybe the crank isn't aftermarket, but it's got rods and pistons in it. And I'm like, well, shoot, that's the weakest part. I
yeah.
mean, LS Gen 4 rods are decently strong, but they're still the weakest link in a stock bottom end combo.
Yeah.
So throwing pistons and rods in it, I think currently the fastest stock bottom end LS is just a stock block and
Nothing
nothing
else.
else. Maybe
Yeah.
a crank, but not
Mm,
rods and pistons. So,
hmm.
um,
Did you see what
I
Steve
like
Morris did with an aluminum LS? Did you see his video where
no.
he like milled out almost the whole like the
Well,
deck
I
halfway
caught
down?
that one. It's in my favorites to watch it. I saw that where he kind of like opened up the whole decking and he basically put his
Made a
own decking in there. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, that's incredible. Then from the once the heads are on it, you'd think it's a stock aluminum block LS.
And I think the SML is kind of LS based. But I remember it wasn't this year. I think it was last year. The one of the guys at LS Fest was there with one of the donk cars
Mm,
with an SML. I'm like, what the heck is he doing with an SML? I mean, it's not a LS. I
mm-mm.
mean, sure, maybe it's based on LS geometry, but but it's not an LS. It's like Rob Dahm when he showed up to LS Fest with the rotary powered car and
Yeah.
with the rotary Corvette and stuff.
Yeah, I think that SML only shares like a timing cover, bolt pattern, and
Yeah.
maybe that's it. I
Yeah,
don't know what
probably.
else. But
And I've
uh,
I've actually started looking at LT combos lately too because the LT is a stronger engine. But I actually like what some of the developmentation that like BTR did a huge dyno run with those where they went from direct injection to port injection and lost a ton of power
hmm,
because with the direct injection, uh, the air is the only thing trying to get past the valve.
right.
Then the valve shuts, then the fuel comes in. So one, you can run incredible timing because there's no fuel in the cylinder to knock, to
Hmm.
pre-detonate, because you're controlling the fuel timing. And then two, without the fuel being in the airstream coming into the engine,
More
you're
room for air.
super more air dense.
Hmm.
When they went to port injection, especially with fuels like E85, which you have to throw so much fuel
Lots of
into the
fuel.
into
Hmm.
the cylinder to make up what you need for the proper, stoichiometric efficiency rating, they were losing airflow because of the fuel load that was going into the motor and lost power.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that I'm ready for direct injection. I think there's too many issues with oil contamination causing, contaminants on the back of the valves
Oh.
which then help cause detonation and loss of power. But
Hmm.
good PCV, catch can system or a dirty breather, that will help take care of those things. But
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. I knew that they were putting some direct injection in those, and I've seen some like piggyback systems too when they get up in the horsepower, I guess.
you know,
Maybe that DI stuff, and they may have bigger injectors for them now, but I think that used to be the limiting factor, right? They
yeah,
couldn't
it
flow
used to
enough
be
fuel.
the fuel cam. I think the lobe on the cam and the availability of the pump to move so much air fuel volume was the biggest issue.
Mm.
Because like diesel guys, they run,
Yeah.
I think direct injectors have room to grow, but basically it was a pump
Okay.
cam combination issue they were running into with the LT engines for the longest time. I'm not sure I haven't been enough into the LT game to see what the current, limiting factor is, but I know that
Mm.
was the limiting factor was the pumps and the cam lobes limitations.
No. All right, hey, let's move on. We've been at it for a while. I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah.
What's the schedule looking like for 26 next year?
So we're already signed up for Six Summer.
Mm.
The daughter and I are going to do that event in June. We're going
Mm.
to be back at King of the Mountain as long as they'll have us this year. They're doing a sort of a different list this year, and I vaguely recall maybe I was in the top 20 last year. I had a bad day one or a bad day two last year, so I kind of set myself up for failure last year. Kind of both years. Last year and the year prior, I had one bad day and one really good day.
Mm.
Where I said, that consistency,
Yeah.
I'm still hunting that consistency and all that to really find where I'm getting fast and where I'm falling behind the competitors.
Mm.
We're gonna do LS Fest again. We always enjoy that event. I know it's getting very busy, but they've done a lot to improve that venue at East
Mm.
to help with getting in and out of the event. Um, I don't think this year we're going to do Autocross Week because I believe it's conflicting with Six Summer. But we'd
No.
like to get back into that event. I've started the partnership with those guys again. They're going south this year, so those guys are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't want to go to Pennsylvania." They're going south this year.
Mm.
Check them out. They're going Nashville, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio area
Uh,
for that event. So check it out. I don't
yep.
know if they're in Ohio, but they're in that general
Yeah.
ballpark, the United States. So check them out, see where they're headed this year.
I intend to
We've
do
talked.
that next. Well, this will air in New Year, so I intend to do that this year. Uh,
It's as much fun as you put into it.
mm.
If for the guys that are going to do that event and say, oh, well, it's expensive for 5 days of autocross. Don't think of it as 5 days of autocross. Think of it as 5 days of partying with 100, 200 people that think the same way you do, that love cars, that love countryside, that love cruising. There's hangout spots and all these different things. It just makes it one big community awesome event. Don't go there
Mm,
trophy hunting, go there friend hunting, and you'll have an amazing time at that event.
mm.
Um, After LS Fest this next year, we're looking at possibly doing Drag Week, throwing that one onto the venue. We still haven't ironed that one out yet, but I believe we're going to shoot for that one. Partner up with Operational Speed Supply and run that event. Kind of help embrace, get their name out to different
Mm.
racing venues where they maybe not as well known as
Yep.
they are in the autocross pro touring world. So
Cool.
excited to work with them, Elgin Industries, Vector Force Industries. Um, Hopefully soon, Ryan, I'm looking at you. I'm looking for that test bed, but UMI has finally embraced the first gen Camaros, third gen Nova world. They've got some parts in prototype development.
Oh, good.
Uh, I'm still running, curse myself, I'm still running eBay control arms on that car. So Ryan, I'm looking for that upgrade, Um, but I think that is one of the big weak points of the car now is like the front end geometry is getting questionable, and at the loads that I'm putting into it and the age that I've put on those components, it's just a safety factor at this point to change them.
Mm,
And weight, I'd like to get a little bit of weight out of the car. We're probably going to de-aero the car a little bit. I think I'm going to go to a standard trunk, maybe a, RS style Camaro rear spoiler,
mm,
and a slightly smaller front air dam. I like it, but Dan put it well. He said once you throw the huge wings and all that stuff on the muscle cars, it kind of lose some of that muscle car esque, and they're never going to be as fast as a sixth gen Camaro with a competent driver. So why
mm,
challenge it? Take it back to, like he said, good guy spec, and just have fun with it. And
mm.
actually, that's one of the events I might do this year as well too, as Good Guys Heartlands. I've wanted to go out to that event a number of times. It's in my backyard.
Yeah, it's right up there.
How many times is an event in your backyard and you don't go to it and you kick yourself? I travel to Pennsylvania and Kentucky, and I've
Right.
considered going to Vegas for LS Fest Vegas.
Mm.
And I haven't gone to Des Moines for I've gone there for running Des Moines region SCCA, but I haven't gone there
For good
for Good
guys.
Guys. So I need to get out there and run with those guys with Valerie and them and run that event. So.
Yeah, cool. All right, some random stuff. People often mistake my Duster for a Nova. Has anybody
Mhm.
mistaken your Nova for a Duster?
No, but they've mistaken it for Chevelle all the time. So apparently it's a
Okay.
Chevelle.
Okay.
I've been told it's a Camaro.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been told before it's a Ford.
Oh,
Um,
Jesus.
I've been told
Interesting.
it's many times it's just a pretty car.
Mm,
The orange really does make it pop. People
yeah,
love
yeah.
the orange color.
Mm,
It's not a pretty looker. I painted that car myself in an old mechanics barn in 2011 with tractor paint. That legitimately is tractor paint on that car. They sold it at Tractor Supply under the Valspar brand for a few years.
mm.
Its name's Alice. So if you ever meet we call the car Alice.
Okay.
All cars have female names in our household. Even my daughter's car, her cars have female names. The
Mm.
car's called Alice for the Alice Chalmers paint.
Okay.
Um,
Nice.
Paint, engine work, transmission, axle, all that stuff we did
Mm,
ourselves.
yeah.
You don't need $1 million to go fast.
Mm,
People think you need $1 bazillion to go fast. Just get something running. Go to the mat, sloppy mechanics. Mentality of how can I go fast cheap? And
mm,
once you figure that out, you'll start having a lot more fun instead of chasing micro records. And I've stressed myself out trying to be the fastest grand champion drag racer. And probably giving myself an ulcer over it. And I'm glad I did it, but I definitely had less fun getting that record than I have just showing up to an event, hanging out with friends, and running. People said this year there was something off this year with some of the bigger events I went to, and I think it's the family commitment or not
mm,
commitment, but the family feeling of these events. Some of the events I went to just didn't have the same crowd
mm.
there, and the kind of the bonding and the jokery and the catching up and all that stuff just was there missing from a few events this year. So
Hmm.
do yourself a favor, make friends at your autocross and at your pro touring events and such, and you'll have a funner
Absolutely.
time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Our Mopar Grand Champion family. I mean, it's like a family
Yep.
reunion. I have a
Yep.
I have a group text with I don't even know how many people on it. So we just,
Yep.
you know, bust balls all year round.
I'd
and then
like
get
to
to do it in
go.
person in September.
I'm not I'm not so I am a Chevy guy, right?
Mm,
But the older I get, if it's a cool car, it's a really cool car. I'm not brand specific. I find my favorite car of all things,
mm.
67, 68 AMC Rebel.
Okay,
If I
that's
could
different.
find one that wasn't
Mm,
rotted to the ground, I'd own
mm.
one. Of course, my nickname back in high school was Rebel, so that kind of has something to do with it. But
Yeah,
I
perfect
was always
match.
about the I was always about the oddball cars. Nova's got, kind of popular when all
Mm,
their other cars went up in price. The Nova's kind of were the cheap pickings and people
mm.
got into those cars. I've owned at one time 38 Novas.
Golly.
A lot of them were scrap value, and I grew up in the coal bed of Pennsylvania, so
Mm,
everybody had one in the backyard rotting away. So you'd pick them up for $50 and take the trim off of them, and
mm.
sell them for 25 or something.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have kept my first one. My first one was a 74 4-speed car.
Yeah. Mm,
Um, and we pulled the motor out of it, and just somebody drove by at the right time and said, "Hey, that car for sale?" And I said, "Not
yep.
really." And he said, "I'll give you $1,000 for it." And I said,
Mm.
"I'll load it up for you." How do you,
That's
you
right.
know,
Uh,
going back, I wish I'd have held on to it, but at the time, like, I was kind of frustrated with the car, and I
mm,
had the 72, the silver car, which is now orange. So at that time, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll help you load it, get it out of here. I didn't have the space. So
yeah. Last one. Do you prefer drag race and autocross? You had to pick one.
I prefer autocross,
Okay.
hands down.
Mm,
So again, my first discipline was drag racing. It's incredibly boring. I cannot just do drag racing.
mm,
Drag and drive is not drag racing. It is drag racing, sure, but the drive part of it makes it not drag
mm,
racing. The people were amazing and stuff like that. And really what kills me for drag racing was I was a very late start to auto racing. I grew up not a lot of money. Didn't have cool cars when I was young, didn't have anything that was remotely fast. And there were no tracks anywhere near our little neck of the woods where we run around. So I didn't grow up in the car scene. So when I finally entered the car scene, in my 20s, um, I had no idea what I needed to do or not do to go faster. And, trying to stage the first time at a drag strip, I had no idea what to do and not to do to, not
mm.
be a nuisance and all that stuff. And I would ask questions like, "Hey, what do I do?" And nobody wanted to talk to you.
Right.
I'm not talking to you. Get out of here. People slamming hoods down like they're at a no time event where there's cash on the line or something. And it's like, we're a freaking testing tune on a Friday in the middle of Texas, in the
Mm,
middle of nowhere. Um, and that drove me away from drag racing. And then I went to a few events where you pay your $50 at the gate and you unload the car and you get in line and you check card and you're already hot. And then you get up there for your first run and somebody oils down the track. And now you're sitting for 3 hours. And then you get up there and somebody blows your dry shaft apart in the line. And now you're
mm,
waiting for 2 hours. And now that the car's faster, if the car's sorted, you go there, you make a 9-second run, and then you sit for 3 hours. Let the car cool down, let the track cool down, let the run
mm.
groups run through, and then you're ready to go again. And it's just not fun.
Yeah.
You know, Autocross, it's the dynamics, drag racing, especially like a calm car like mine. I could stick you in my car, I could stick anybody in my car and cut a 9.5 in drag trim. If I put
Mm,
drag trim back on it and set the two-step, go up there and say, hold it to the wood, and as soon as the light changes, lift the button and stomp the loud pedal.
yeah.
It drives true, it drives straight, it doesn't do anything goofy, and you'd cut a 9.5 all day long.
Mm,
Boring as hell.
yep.
There's no excitement to it.
Mm,
Um, with autocross, it's super exciting because you're always chasing a slightly different, better line. I didn't backside that cone properly, which screwed up the next two turns, or I jammed the brakes a little bit too much and locked the tire up and slid through my points. And, there's a huge dynamic to every run, and that makes it far more exciting and enjoyable.
I
I
agree.
think what brought me back towards drag racing more is just health issues.
Okay.
Like I said, I
Mm,
have 3 crushed discs in my neck. I'm pending surgery probably this year or next,
mm,
and turning my head is becoming difficult. And that's made me go look back into drag racing since I can just plant myself in the seat
mm,
and let go of the button.
yeah.
Where with autocross, like I said, multi-day events, and even this year, like I felt bad because some of the other cars in my region aren't as prepped as mine. And I felt bad because it's not good competition here, in my
Mm,
region, against class cars of mine. And I always felt like I was beating up on the little guy, so to speak. So I'd go to an autocross and run 1, 2 runs and park the car and just
Mm,
help the club out, um, just to help save my health and not make it feel like I was beating up on the little guy too.
right.
Um, so hopefully we can get my health figured out, my neck figured out, my spine figured out, and get back into good seat time with the car because I'm still young. I'm only 40 something, 43 or something like that. I don't know.
Mm.
We stopped paying attention to birthdays after 21. So uh,
I'm going to start
you know,
counting the other direction now, I think. I'm nearing that half century mark.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, after a point, you have to just okay. When am I hitting 50? When am I hitting 60? You just look for the tens at that point. So
Oh goodness. All right, man, this has been fun. I know you mentioned some sponsors or even companies you want to recognize if you want to, take an opportunity to do that again.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So Elgin Industries, partnered up with us. They partnered up with my daughter. So I got nothing but love for my guys at Elgin. They do more than just cams. They're OEM supplier of some of the biggest parts: John Deere, Caterpillar, Mopar, Dodge, Ford, Stellantis, whatever they are this week. Ford, GM. They supply OEMs. I will say though, because when I was running the booth at LS Fest, I had some guys say, "Oh, well, your cam, if it comes in a white box from Amazon, it's not Elgin. All right, that is a knockoff from China. Okay, it's all American steel, but if it doesn't come in that nice orange and blue box, it's not Elgin parts. So do not buy it from questionable sites. Elgin is on eBay, but very limited, so I wouldn't even recommend them. Go to Jegs, go to Summit,
Mm,
go to Speedway Motors, go to some of the bigger competition products, or to your local engine builder because they're probably into the catalog, or if you're a
right.
dealer, you can get into the network.
Mm,
Second one is Operational Speed Supply. They've been doing a lot of awesome things with me. Almost all my safety equipment is through Operational Speed Supply. The fire suit and the Hans device and the parachute and all that stuff for the car. And they do more than that, but I kind of just try to keep like certain people doing certain things so I can kind of share the love between all the awesome people out there in this industry. And
mm,
then Vector Force Industries has definitely helped me through the years with braking components and some just basic knowledge on the fluid dynamics and friction dynamic systems with those guys up there. So they've done a lot of help. And, anytime we're running together, Justin and the crew, they're always open to sharing ideas of where I'm, not driving as well as I should and how to get a little bit faster behind the wheel. So I think he also spec'd my Viking rear shocks and an operational did my front shocks this year. So I try to share the love between those three companies, and I'm really appreciative of what those guys do for me.
okay. Awesome. Social media, where can people find you?
I am thinking of getting back into YouTube. I am on YouTube, I think, as Nick Barnett or Yellow Nova. If you look for YLW Nova, I know the car's orange, but originally it was supposed to be yellow. So I am on Instagram, I think also as Nick Barnett or Yellow Nova, and then on Facebook as Yellow Nova, or excuse me, as Nick Barnett.
Okay.
The car doesn't have any special page, it's just me, and Facebook's more kind of personal and car, and then
Mm,
Instagram is just all car stuff. I don't do any of the personal updates, life updates, and then YouTube. The big struggle when anybody that's getting into YouTube is when you're young, you don't have any algorithm, and we're not flashy girls doing car demos or anything like that.
no.
So motorsports always gets low views,
Mm,
and I had a decent computer. It's old now, and I'm having computer issues. Going to have to upgrade again, but you buy $2,000 in computer in different cameras and setting them all up, and you got $2,000 computer, and you spend hours in Vegas,
mm.
molding the video all together, and it gets 38 views, and you're like,
Uh,
man, I did a lot of work for nothing, and it kind of disheartens you. So I
right.
am looking to get back into that though, because a lot of people have found me entertaining or very good in my instructional videos where I discuss certain aspects of like putting the motor
Yeah,
together or
good.
things like that. So
Yeah.
I probably will get back into doing those again as I find more time. Our daughter's in college now, so with that I have a little more time. And then now that I'm out of the army and career's kind of getting stable, my schedule's a little bit more predictable. So I have
Okay.
more time for doing stuff like that again.
Awesome. Yep. All right. Well, everybody check him out. I appreciate your time, Nick. And of
Yeah,
course, thanks
absolutely.
for your
Thank you.
service, more
Thank you.
importantly. So
Yeah. Thank
we'll
you to
go.
all the veterans and cancer survivors. If you're battling cancer, our friends are here with you.
Mm.
always here to, chat or whatever. My wife's a cancer survivor. Almost all my in-laws are cancer survivors. We got a lot of good friends in the racing industry of cancer survivors. So if you're struggling, don't struggle alone. Reach out to a friend. If you're a veteran struggling, PM me. I'm more than willing to talk to you. So, nobody has to take the short road out. Make sure you hang out and reach that help if you need it. I'm a big
Awesome.
proponent for veteran mental health and then cancer, resources and network. So if you're a veteran getting ready to get out of the Army, hit me up for help with the VA. I've considered becoming a VSO. Maybe I will in the future. We'll see how this other career does. But if you're needing help with getting out of the Army or out of the military and navigating the VA, hit me up. If you're having issues and feeling like the road's ending, hit me up. And if you're a cancer survivor and you just need somebody to help, lean on to, I'm here to help you guys.
Awesome. I don't think I can top that. So we'll end it off here. Later, everybody.
Thanks, man. Appreciate